beginning of a story called Male Conservation Society. Here is the first specimen, Miss Fulton announces, and she pulls back the curtain covering the viewing window. Through the glass, Doreen Anderson can see a man using a controller to flip through channels. His dull eyes seem not to register what's on the screen. Step up and get a closer look, Miss Fulton urges. He can't see or hear us through the glass. Doreen moves in close. Her breath forms a little circle of condensation on the glass. She has never seen a live male specimen before. Doreen has seen clips from footage hundreds of years old that features males, healthy and virile, in a broad-chested, nice haircut sort of way. But Doreen finds the real thing on the other side of the window terribly disappointing. This one's hair is a dusty brown that falls in its eyes. He looks like he could use some sun. Doreen wonders if they let it go outside. He's wearing a t-shirt that stretches over a full paunch. At least they feed him well, she thinks. Doreen is starting to second-guess her choice to go through with getting pregnant this way, using natural conception, or NC, as it's more commonly called. There doesn't seem to be anything natural about NC, which, from what Doreen understands, would involve wrestling around with a male specimen. Not only does she not have any desire to be close to this particular specimen, but there's nothing about this one that Doreen would want to see in her offspring. Sperm banks with millions and millions of quality samples to choose from, with any mix of traits you could imagine, used to be your only option for procreating. That's how Doreen's mother had had her, and how her grandmother had had her mother, and so on and so on. That's how everyone Doreen knows had been conceived. There are stories about women out in the countryside who've been impregnated in some primitive way by males rumored to live up in the mountains. But Doreen knows these are just urban legends cooked up by frightened city folk. It's true that on rare occasions there's a medical error and someone accidentally gives birth to a male. If the pregnancy isn't terminated early, the person carries the pregnancy to term and gives birth. The results of those rare medical mishaps are kept in special facilities. Doreen is touring one of those facilities now to determine if any of their specimens would suit her procreational needs. Using sperm delivered in person directly from a living male using NC is a new thing, or maybe it should be called a retro thing, Doreen thinks. Well, what do you think? Asked Miss Fulton. I'm not sure what to think, especially now that I've seen a real male, says Doreen. I was so excited about NC when I walked in here, but this, Doreen motions toward the glass, unable to articulate how disappointed she is. This is kind of shocking, she says, and laughs nervously. Many women feel this way after seeing their first specimen, and NC is such a bizarre, rather barbaric thing if you ask me, Miss Fulton says. Then she inhales and exhales rather loudly. If I do NC, I'd have to get pretty close to one of these. Doreen points at the glass. She rests her finger on it and taps gently. The specimen doesn't appear to hear her tapping. Are they dangerous, Miss Fulton? Yes, many of them are by nature, but the only specimens available for NC are pretty docile. You don't seem keen on NC, Miss Fulton. I take it it's not something you would do? Without a moment's hesitation, Miss Fulton says, never. It's pretty disgusting, and I'm a bit more traditional. I'd go with a sperm bank if I were in the market to conceive. Disgusting. Doreen turns and looks at Miss Fulton, who is a rotund matron of a woman with graying hair around her temples. Do your employers here at the Male Conservation Society realize you tell prospective clients that NC is disgusting? Young women like yourself don't care what an older woman like me thinks of these things, right? You came here because you want a unique experience. That's what they call it in the brochure, which I'm sure you've seen. Well, my cousin does say it is quite an experience. Doreen turns back toward the viewing window and tries to imagine what NC would be like with this specimen. It's your money, Miss Anderson. Who am I to tell you what to do with it? Miss Fulton steps up to the window and peers into the room. I can say this, though. If I were to do NC, I wouldn't choose this one. Miss Fulton twists her mouth in disapproval. Look at him. That's all he does every day. And to think, hundreds of years ago, there were billions of them at one time. In politics, running things, wreaking havoc everywhere, waging wars. They can be vile, violent creatures. Miss Fulton's rubber nurse's claws make a squishy sound as she steps over to the curtain and pulls it shut. She leads Doreen out of the viewing room and down the hall. Do they get to go outside? Doreen asks. Of course they do, once a day. Once a day? They might as well be in prison then. Miss Fulton stops and looks hard at Doreen. What, we're supposed to let them go gallivanting about? Women would be indiscriminately having children, maybe even male children, and would run into population problems. Miss Fulton pauses. You're not one of those male rights people, are you? No, I just thought that last one could use some sun, get out a little. And what if I was a male rights person, then what? Miss Fulton clasps her hands in front of her ample belly and stares at Doreen. If you're not serious about natural conception, then you're wasting my time, Miss Anderson. No, I'm serious about this. I just think this specimen would be better off if they got out and had some physical activity. That's all. It was just a question. Miss Fulton turns and continues down the hallway. Doreen imagines it isn't too late to get her deposit back. NC with one of these sad specimens was becoming less and less appealing. The whole process had intrigued Doreen when she initially heard about it, and her doctor had said her chances of getting pregnant with NC were much higher. Her cousin highly recommended it to any of her relatives or friends who were ready to have children. Messy is what her cousin called it, but like nothing else she'd ever done. There was something about it that her cousin liked, something that Doreen didn't quite get. Miss Fulton takes a card out of her pocket and scans it at the door at the end of the hallway. I can assure you, Miss Anderson, that this facility meets the highest standards and takes excellent care of its specimens. We collect sperm once a day, but of course, on the day of copulation, if you go with one of these specimens, we won't collect. Miss Fulton opens the door to the next viewing room. Doreen steps up to the window and looks in. There's a man about 6 feet, 3 inches tall, in a room much bigger than the last room. Doreen has never seen anyone so tall. He is typing on a small device. This one is also well-fed, but very fit. I assume they get medical care, right? This one looks very healthy. Yes, there's a whole team of doctors that care for the male specimens. The healthier they are, the better the quality of the sperm. That's what's important. Wouldn't they still be cared for if they didn't produce sperm? Miss Fulton rolls her eyes. No one's neglecting these males, but the better their sperm production, the more valuable and useful they are. Doreen is irritated by Miss Fulton's utilitarian and rather cavalier attitude about the care of the males. Doreen finds it off-putting that these creatures, who are for all intents and purposes the same species as Doreen and Miss Fulton, aren't given a bit of respect. It bothers Doreen so much that she's already planning to report the Male Conservation Society to whatever board manages the care of endangered or nearly extinct, actually, members of this species. Miss Fulton is standing right by the viewing window, staring. This one's very compliant, she explains. When they send out the annual brochure to get support for the work we do in male conservation, they always use pictures of this one. Doreen notes that his hair is black, full and shiny, and his skin is a lovely golden brown. Doreen stares at the nape of his neck. He is beautiful. No, handsome, Doreen thinks, trying out this archaic word that she can't recall ever using. She can't imagine a time when there were hundreds, billions of them roaming free. He only goes out once a day. Oh, no, he's so well behaved. He gets out 3 times a day, Miss Fulton explains. We've even done educational tours with this one. Few people have seen a real male in the flesh, so we trot a couple of them out so people can see them. You should see the crowds it draws. Doreen understands why people would be drawn to this male. If she didn't NC, she wouldn't mind spending time with this one. She wonders what his voice sounds like. what he's typing, and if he knows he's being watched.